Hello and welcome back to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen. Today what I'm going to cover is all the books that I've actually bought and own as an ebook. So why is this a big deal? People buy books all the time. Well, it's a big deal for me because the majority of the books that I read are actually Kindle Unlimited books. So I pay a monthly subscription for both Audible and Kindle Unlimited, and that's mainly where I digest my reading material. So the majority of the things I read are on Kindle Unlimited. So if I actually part with any additional cash, it's because I either really like the book, really want to read it, or I particularly want to support the author in some way. So I thought it'd be fun just to go through some of the top books that I've actually purchased over the years that are currently sitting on my Kindle, and just talk about those and why I spent the money on them. So the first book I want to mention is a book called Come by Becca Jameson, and this is book 1 in the Fight Club series, of which there are 6 books. Now this one is a fairly cheap series to buy if you want to pick this one up. It's not available on Kindle Unlimited, but it's only 77 pence. I don't know what that is equivalent to in other currencies, and obviously the price could vary in other countries as well, but here in the UK it's just 77 pence. So to buy all the books in the series it will probably cost you less than £5. So would highly recommend it. So if you like the first book in this series, and I highly recommend the whole series, is worth purchasing. This particular book is an MMA fighter romance, but it's also set around a BDSM club, and it involves a dom-sub relationship. So in this one we're following Katie and Rafe. Now Rafe is an amateur MMA fighter, and he goes to a local gym where he trains, and at the weekends he does some like I say, amateur fighting matches. During the day he's an accountant. He's also got another hobby, if you like, and he is very much a dom, and he is a member of a local BDSM club where he goes with a group of 5 friends. Now these friends are also MMA amateur fighters, so collectively they are known as the Fight Club. That's what people who go to their gym know them as, and they also all share the same sexual tastes, and therefore they all frequent the same BDSM club together and are all doms as well. Each man in the Fight Club gets their own book, so like I say, if you do like the first one I'd highly recommend all the others as well, and I really like the setup of this one. So this is where we kind of then meet Katie. So Katie is the heroine in this book, and she her uncle owns the gym where the Fight Club trains basically, and Katie's got a bit of a stalker at work, and one day she's coming from home and she's being followed, and she decides to nip in and see her uncle at the gym, thinking that if the stalker sees her going into this gym it might deter him from doing any more stalking. And when she goes into the gym she sees Rafe in the fight ring training, and immediately thinks he's very attractive, but obviously speaks to her uncle and then kind of leaves. Now as she's leaving, the stalker has actually followed her into the car park and is waiting outside in the car, and Rafe is happened to have finished his gym session, and now he's just waiting outside, and she takes an opportunity to pretend that Rafe is maybe her boyfriend, and she kind of just approaches him in the car park and starts to kiss him, and hopefully to deter the stalker. And then of course she has to apologise to Rafe, explain what's happened, and Rafe absolutely doesn't mind because Katie is stunning. He thinks she's pretty attractive as well, and he's happy to be kissed, and then basically he ends up asking her out on a date. The thing is, Rafe doesn't normally date women or sleep with them until he's explained his sexual preference, because he's not moving on this, and he is absolutely 100% a dom, and he wants a submissive as his partner, and Katie knows absolutely nothing of this life. So they end up going on a couple of dates, and she's a bit perturbed because he doesn't want to take their relationship any further, and eventually he reveals to her not only the fact that he's an amateur fighter and he takes her to a fight, but also ends up taking her to the club with a keep an open mind, let me show you around, let me explain to you what it's all about, and if you are not interested, that's absolutely fine, no hard feelings, go your own way, but if you are interested then I am absolutely here to introduce you to the lifestyle. What I absolutely love about this one is I think Becca Jameson did a really, really good job of explaining kind of like the lifestyle, introducing us to a sex club. Katie as a character goes from not really knowing anything about the lifestyle, and he makes sure that she is properly educated, that she gets the support she needs. She does some research into what's going on and fully explains to her every step of the way. They constantly have a dialogue and a conversation about some scenes that they're going to do together, and spending time in this club as well. So I really like the way this plays out, and like I say, if you do like the first book when you read this one, the rest of the series are just as good and absolutely fabulous as well. So I would highly recommend this whole series. Then the next one that I've got is actually a novella, and it's a historical romance, and this one is Surrender to Sin by Nicola Davidson. And actually there's 3 books in this series, and this is book 1. They're each 99 pence each, so all 3 books will cost you just £3. Like I said, they are novellas, so they are pretty short reads, but they are really enjoyable to read, and are worth the money in my opinion. So like I said, these are historical romances, but these are also set around a BDSM club, and the hero in this one, who is called Sebastian but known to everybody, to all his friends and everything as Sin, is a part owner in this club. Now it's a pretty short story, like I said, so it's pretty insta attraction, and it's also kind of a specifically written as an erotic historical romance. So the point of this one is that there is a lot of kink and sex in this one, which is absolutely fine. So there isn't a massive amount of plot, and it's not particularly original, but in this one we have Sebastian, who like I say is Sin, and then we have Grace. Now Grace is a proper lady, and she is also a widower, and she was hoping not to have to marry again, but she has just almost completed 2 years of mourning, and her father has decided he's going to marry her off again to another arranged marriage to a man much older than her, and she has basically had enough. If she's going to get married again, she wants it to be for love, and she doesn't want to marry this man that her father is trying to get her to marry. So she decides that she is going to approach Sin and ask if he will help ruin her reputation, hopefully putting off this other guy to marrying her, and in the process obviously he agrees, and when they end up spending a bit of time together and getting closer to each other, sparks fly. They have a great chemistry together, and you know, their story goes from there. So then the next one is another historical romance, which is Never Seduce Scot by Maya Banks, and this one was £4.99. It's book 1 in the Montgomery and Armstrong series, of which there was originally 3 planned, but the author has only ever done 2 books. They were written around 2013, I think that's when the last book was written, and she's never done the 3rd one. It's still on Amazon as if she's going to write it, but it doesn't look like it's coming out anytime soon, and probably will never see that one, unfortunately. I don't generally read a lot of historical romances, mainly because many of them aren't on Kindle Unlimited, so therefore I've never kind of really picked them up because they're not free for me to purchase, to borrow basically in the store. But this one has some really, really good ratings and had some great reviews, and I was intrigued enough to pick it up, and I'm absolutely delighted and thrilled that I did. It's a fantastic read, thoroughly enjoyed it. And if I remember correctly, at the time when I read it, which was last year, I gave this one 5 stars. In this one, we're following Evelyn and Graham. Now, Evelyn and Graham come from 2 kind of warring clan families in Scotland, and they're arranged in marriage to align these 2 families together. But Graham is a bit upset because he thinks that the family are trying to palm Evelyn off on him, and basically for political reasons, that they've done this deliberately so that he cannot produce an heir, mainly because Evelyn is deaf. Now, she had an accident when she was a child, which basically meant that she lost her hearing, but the family don't actually know she's deaf, or don't realise that she's deaf, and they actually think this accident that she has did more damage than that, and that maybe she's not, and that maybe she's suffered some sort of brain damage and the ability to consent and to reason. Now the family are really protective of her and they don't necessarily want her to go to this other family, but they're kind of forced into Evelyn being arranged in marriage to Graham. Now what we learn is that Evelyn's actually been keeping a secret from the family, that she's deaf and that she's not stupid in any way at all. She knows exactly what's going on. In fact, she's taught herself how to lip read, so she is very, very aware of what is going on around her. She's just chosen to pretend that she doesn't know what's going on, and that is because of something that happened in her past, and she is worried that she'll be arranged in marriage to somebody else that she doesn't actually want to marry. So when they try and arrange her in marriage to Graham, she's actually delighted because she really, really likes Graham, and one of his qualities that she likes about him is that he's got a very, very deep voice, and when he speaks, although she can't actually hear what he's saying, it kind of really resonates and she can kind of feel the vibrations of his voice in her chest. And so this means that she finds him very, very intriguing and wants to spend more time with him. Now after the marriage and Graham gets her back to his sort of keep, his castle, whatever you want to call it, he starts to realise that there's more to her than he originally thought, and that she is a very clever woman, and he figures out pretty quickly that she is deaf, and starts to learn how to communicate with her. I absolutely thought this love story was fantastic. I thought the plot was brilliant, and then some sort of side characters and backstory of what's going on was really great as well, which really teed up the second book in this series. So if you like historical romances and you like a Scottish Highland romance, I would absolutely recommend this one. It was absolutely fantastic. So the next one I bought was Take Me With You by Nina G. Jones, and this one is £3.79. It's a dark romance, and I talked about this one in my dark romance recommendations video. This is very dark, but it intrigued me so much. I love a dark romance, and it intrigued me so much that I really, really wanted to read this one, and hence I bought it because it's not available on Kindle Unlimited. And this involves like a captor-captive situation, and it follows Vesper and Sam. Now Sam is a very troubled man. He has had a very difficult childhood, but it has led him to be a stalker who stalks his victims, terrorizes his victims, and does some damage to his victims. So he doesn't particularly kill them, but he is not at all nice to the people that he picks. Like I say, he kind of like follows them around, learns everything about them, and then starts to terrorize them until it kind of, you know, peaks in. He breaks into their home, sexually assaults the woman, and kind of leaves their lives ruined. So he is not a nice man at all, but he sets his sights on Vesper as his next as the next person that he's going to kind of watch and stalk, and he's very intrigued by her more than he's been by some of the other people that he's stalked. Now it comes to a bit of a head, and he has to escalate his timeline to break into the home when he sees that her boyfriend has proposed to her, and he decides today is the day and he's going to go in and ruin things for her. Now normally, like I say, he would just break in, sexually assault the woman, and then kind of leave the house and leave them to their ruined lives. But in this particular scenario, so Vesper has a younger brother who has a disability, and he is therefore vulnerable, and she is scared when Sam breaks into the house and starts to try and terrorize them, and she desperately pleads for Sam to not at all harm her young brother, and her and as part of this kind of pleading and begging, she basically says to him, don't do anything to me now, don't hurt my brother, take me with you. And so Sam makes a split second decision to take Vesper with him, and then when he's got her, he's not quite sure what to do with her, so he keeps her captive, essentially locked up in a cabin in the woods. And this is where the story goes from there. And it's quite a harrowing story. It's very difficult. Like I said, the hero is not a good person, but over time we learn a bit more about him and his motivations. We see how he's treating Vesper, and we also see how Vesper comes to terms with her captivity. She's held captive by him for a long time, and she almost kind of gets this Stockholm syndrome where At first she's very, very scared of him, but after a while he's the only person that she sees, it's the only person that she has contact with, and she starts to look forward to when he comes to visit her in her captivity. And so it is a fascinating story, completely believable, and I absolutely loved it. So if you don't mind reading a dark romance, then I would highly recommend this one, but I'd also check your trigger warnings before you dive in, because like I say, it is very dark and very harrowing in places, so just make sure that you're aware of all the triggers before you go in. So then after that I have Stolen Touches by Neva Altaj, and this is book 5 in the Perfectly Imperfect series, which is a mafia series from Neva. Now, majority of her books end up in Kindle Unlimited, and this one is now available in Kindle Unlimited if you do have a subscription. But when she first brings her books out, you can't get them on Kindle Unlimited, they're paid for only, and it's only after a few weeks that they then move to Kindle Unlimited. Now, I've been loving this series so much that I just couldn't wait the 2-week period before it came out on KU, and so I downloaded it immediately, which meant I had to pay for it, and I think I parted with about £3.35, so again, a reasonable price for the book and well worth the money if you wanted to buy it and support the author. But like I say, it is now available on Kindle Unlimited if you already have a KU subscription. So this one is a story that follows Mylene and Salvatore, and Mylene is a mafia princess from a family in a different city. I think she may be from Chicago, and she has moved to New York to be a nurse, and she's studying to be a nurse and kind of working in a hospital in New York. Now, she isn't supposed to be there because New York is ran by Salvatore, and it's his kind of like, you know, it's his domain, and therefore nobody from Mylene's family is supposed to go to New York without his permission. She thinks though that she's very insignificant and therefore no one will notice she's there, and that she'll just fly under the radar and everything will be fine. And everything is fine until the day when Salvatore is happened to be getting a checkup at the hospital, and as he comes out he sees Mylene helping a couple give birth to a child in the car park. Now, she doesn't know who he is straight away, but he's happening to walk past, and she asks him for his jacket, and she uses the jacket to help deliver this baby, and so she's very much puts herself into Salvatore's path. Now, Salvatore doesn't necessarily know who she is straight away, but he's extremely intrigued by her, and he kind of starts to stalk her. And when he finds out a bit more about who she is and figures out who she is, he realises that he can absolutely use this to his advantage and force her into an arranged marriage, because he pretty much threatens and says, since you're in my city without permission, you've got 2 choices. I either kill you or you can marry me. So of course Mylene chooses to marry him, and so Salvatore kind of gets his way by getting her because he wanted her, but Mylene is not too happy about this and is very, very resentful to start with. Now, Salvatore is an absolute psychopath in this one. He is completely possessive, controlling, and dominant, but also he is obsessed with her, extremely focused on her, and he, although he's a psychopath, he is becomes very emotionally connected to her, starts to worry about her, and to the point where he kind of tracks her and wants her to ring him every hour on the hour to make sure to tell him that she's okay, and he starts to worry if they're separated for too long. So the next one is another book that I downloaded because it wasn't on Kindle Unlimited straight away when it first came out, and I couldn't wait to read it, so I basically paid the money to read it instead of waiting until it's available on KU. And this one is Grim and Bear It by Juliette Cross. It's a paranormal romance, and it's book 6 in the Stay a Spell series, so it's the 6th and final book in this series. I paid £4.85 for it, but like I say, it is now moved on to KU, so you can get it on KU if you want it. And just as an aside on this one, Juliette Cross has recently launched a Kickstarter to buy limited edition versions of the whole Stay a Spell series. That Kickstarter is going to be open until the end of June, so hopefully this video will be up before the end of June, and so there should be a few days left for you to sign up to that Kickstarter if you want to, so look out for that. It's the Stay a Spell series as a Kickstarter for Juliette Cross, and I'll try and remember to link it below the video if you're interested in checking that out. So what's this book about? So it's book 6, like I say, in the Stay a Spell series, and this series is set in New Orleans, and it revolves around the Savoy sisters, who are witches in New Orleans, and each of the Savoy sisters gets their own book. So by the time we get to this one, we are basically following Clara, who's one of the Savoy sisters, and we're also following Henry, who is a Grimm. So I've talked about this one before, but if you don't know what it's about, basically we have been following Clara and Henry pretty much since book 1. They have had a very slow burn romance to get us to this point. We've seen that they are very attracted to each other, want to be together, but Henry is holding back because he's got a dark secret. He doesn't want to hurt Clara, and so he's been holding himself back. But as we've gone through the books, we've learned a bit more about Grimms, we understand a bit more about Henry and what his you know, special powers are and what he can do. And so by the time we get to book 6, although their relationship through the series has been a slow burn, by the time we get to book 6, they absolutely want to be together. We don't dilly-dally. Juliette gets this couple together pretty quickly in the book, and it is fantastic to see. And it's just really a fantastic roundup and culmination of the series as a whole. We get to see all of the sisters. There's a great you know, epilogue at the end where we kind of look into the future and see what's become of them. And so I highly recommend the whole series, and this one was a great finish to that series as a whole. Then the next one I picked up was Aliens on Earth Anthology, and this was just 99p. It's an anthology of short stories, short novellas by about 40 different authors, and it is sci-fi alien romance compilation. Again, this one is now available on KU, so you can buy it on KU, but I bought it when it first came out for 99p, mainly because I wanted to support one of the authors in this anthology, Deysi O'Donnell, who has written the Earth's Bounty series, and in this anthology she kind of wrote a short story that kind of like is set in the same world as some of her other books, and it was called Sasha's Bounty. Sasha is a human, and she is abducted from Earth. She owns an old ranch though, so an old sort of farm sort of ranch that she's kind of inherited from her family, and she's desperately trying to keep it alive, but it's losing money and she needs to spend a lot of money on it to do a lot of repairs. She doesn't have enough people to help her on the farm, so it's kind of going to rack and ruin, but she desperately wants to keep this farm slash ranch. One day when she's sitting out on the back contemplating her life, she gets abducted by aliens, and these are bad aliens who are going to sell her, like they're kind of like human traffickers, like alien equivalents of human traffickers if you like, and she's going to be sold to auction. Now as she's traveling through through space on this spaceship, these aliens who have abducted her decide to do a pit stop in a space station and get some beer, and while they're talking in the pub, kind of laughing and joking, bragging about this human that they've got in the back of their spaceship, they're overheard by 2 men who are Breton and Vrook, and they're actually clones, so they pretty much look identical. And Breton and Vrook are actually bounty hunters who specialise in rescuing people, but alien people, who have been trafficked around the universe. They overhear that this has happened to Sasha, and they basically rescue her. Now they have every intention of taking her back to Earth, but of course on their journey they develop a relationship, and I won't say any more, but that's basically how the book starts. So the next one I wanted to mention was the Nephilim Sphere by Eliza Hampstead. Now I actually have a hard copy version of this one as well. This is a paranormal book, and it's $4.99 to buy on as an ebook, but it's also now available to download on Kindle Unlimited as well. if you've got a subscription. So this one is book 2 in the War of the Nephilim series, and then this one we're following Andrew and Azariel. Now basically this is a paranormal romance, and it's kind of based around the Nephilim, who are half angel, half human, and they are fighting for good on Earth against other supernatural creatures like vampires, werewolves and fae and all of that sort of stuff, and they're keeping the humans safe. And our heroine in this one is Azariel, and she's a Nephilim, and she takes a shine to Andrew, who is related to another character from book 1, and she tries to pursue, so Azariel tries to pursue Andrew and have a romantic relationship with him, but Andrew's also harbouring his own secret, which is making him very reluctant to spend time with Azariel, which she finds very frustrating. But as their relationship develops, we also get some additional plot points as we go through kind of the War of the Nephilim and kind of what's going on with their enemies and people who may be out to get them. And when it's clear that Azariel is having strong feelings for Andrew, he obviously becomes a target from some of her enemies, and she, you know, has to make sure that he's kept safe. So the reason I've got a hard copy of this, as well as the fact that I bought it, is because I was a beta reader for this book for Eliza Hampstead, and she very kindly gifted me this book. She has actually signed it for me and sent it to me because I supported her with the beta reading of the book. So I want to thank Eliza very much for sending me this book, and I absolutely love it. I think the front cover is beautiful, and it'll take pride of place on my shelves behind me when I get to put it away. But before she sent me the book, I also very much wanted to support Eliza. She's a very new author, and I think she has created a very interesting world, and I'm sure that her writing will continue to go from strength to strength. So I wanted to support her, so I've bought a copy of the ebook, but I'm also very proud to own a physical copy of this book as well. Going from a paranormal romance, we're now going to a military / romantic suspense romance, and this one is Rescuing Rayne by Susan Stoker. Now, I have not talked about Susan Stoker before on my channel, and I've not read a book from her in maybe 2 years, but I absolutely used to love her books, and in particular I like her Delta Force series. Now she writes military romances where all her heroes are either Navy SEALs or Delta Force or some, you know, special ops in the army style people, and they normally operate in teams, and then each team member gets their own book, and then she kind of does a different series. But this particular series that I absolutely love, it was one of my favourites, was the Delta Force series. It was the first Delta Force. She's done a couple of Delta Force series, but it was the first one. Like I say, and this one was called Rescuing Rayne, and it's book 1 of I think there's 10 books altogether, but I think that's because it incorporates 2 of her Delta Force teams. Each book in the series is £4.99, but the very first one is available it is available for free. It's not on Kindle Unlimited, but she usually does her first book for free to entice you into the series, and the rest you have to pay for. So this particular book was free, but I've got all of the other books in the series of which I paid for, and they're all about £4.99, like I said. So the first one in the series is Rescuing Rayne, and in this one we're following Rayne, who is a flight attendant, and our hero is Keen, or Ghost is what he's known to by his friends in the military. So basically Ghost is on his way home from a mission and is flying in a normal aircraft. He's not gone on a military plane, and he's flying in a normal aircraft, and Rayne happens to be the flight attendant on his flight. Now they stop over in London, and she has kind of finished her shift. She's going to spend the following day in London, and then the following morning she'll just get on to kind of the next flight and carry on with her work. Now they get chatting on the plane, get very friendly, and Ghost asks her if she would like to spend the day with him in London, and she agrees. So they spend this amazing day together in London. They spend the night together, they have an amazing time, and then they basically part ways. Now this is all very amicable and mutual. They've had a lovely time, got to know each other, but they, you know, part ways at the end of the day, and they go on the merry way. And a couple of months go by, and Rayne finds herself in a situation in a foreign country where she is taken hostage along with quite a few other tourists, and held in this house. And who should be called to help them out of this hostage situation but Ghost's Delta Force team. And basically when they kind of eventually get the hostages out, and they and he realises that she's been a hostage, he kind of rescues her. That's when they kind of start their relationship for real, because they've both been kind of pining after each other and thinking about each other since their night together in London. And now she knows what he does for a living, because before it was a bit of a secret, but now obviously she's been rescued by him, so now she knows exactly what he does for a living. He said, if you can live with, you know, if you can be with somebody who's in the military but in a special you know, secret branch of the military, and you never know where I'm going to be on missions or if I'm even going to come home, and you can put up with that and live with that, then let's be together. And kind of that's, so it's kind of their love story that goes from there. So I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and I would highly recommend Susan Stoker if you like a military romance. And the last one I wanted to talk about was Sherrilyn Kenyon's League series. So I pretty much have bought all of Sherrilyn Kenyon's books on as an ebook, so I could pretty much talk about any of them, but I particularly like her League series, of which there are 11 books. And the one I wanted to mention is book 1, which is Born of Night. It's a fantasy kind of sci-fi romance, and in this one we're following an ex-assassin called Kenyon. And he's now formed a group that kind of like looks after people like security and bodyguarding and that sort of thing. And he is asked to bodyguard and protect Kiara, who is a bit of a, they sort of call her the princess, but basically her father is extremely powerful in a political sense, pretty much runs their kind of planet where they live. And he's made a lot of political enemies, and so Kiara's kind of become a bit of a target for these enemies. So he has hired Kenyon to kind of go and protect her, but he does this by any means necessary, which also means that he has to sort of kidnap her really when she doesn't willingly want to go with him. And so he kind of kidnaps her, keeps her captive, but with the ultimate goal of keeping her safe. So this is the start of an absolutely fantastic story. Like, the whole series as a whole is amazing. Each book focuses on a different couple, so it's not like we're going to be following Kenyon and Kiara throughout the whole book. However, we do see them in the other books. But the backstory, the political intrigue, kind of what goes on in this series is absolutely fantastic. Would highly recommend, and worth every penny of the cost of the books to download. So there you have it. They are 10 recommendations of books I think are actually worth buying. So like I say, it's a bit of a reverse of a Kindle Unlimited haul. This is kind of like an ebook purchasing haul that I wanted to recommend to you. So I hope you find that useful. If you have any, if you know of any books that you think that aren't on Kindle Unlimited but you think that I absolutely have to read and are worth a purchase, then please let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me. And if you haven't watched it yet, why don't you watch my Kindle Unlimited haul that I put up a few weeks ago. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So going from paranormal, we're going straight into and recently it's longer than a novella. It's longer than novella length, but it's not a particularly long book. Like I said, this is a historical romance and it's set in the Highlands, and I absolutely love this one. I'm not a massive fan of historical romances, and I don't generally lead a written. Now, in this one, we're following Katie and Rafe. So Katie is the heroine in this one, and to pick up all 6 books in the series will cost you, you know, my maths is shit, but probably less than about £4. I'm worried this is going to be a bit of a train wreck today, but let's see how we get on. So positive mind, happy thoughts.